Right, we say that Annie is a sole trader who does not keep full accounting records, and the following details relate to her transactions with credit customers and suppliers for the year ended 30 June 2026. So I said that since the year ends 30 June 2026, it means that it starts from 1st July, right, 20x5. That is something you really need to understand from the very beginning to avoid problems. So I specified here the accounting period that is concerned here. We said it starts from 1st July 20x5 to 30 June 20x6, right? Something like this. All right, after here, the question said, what figure should appear for purchases in Annie's statement of profit or loss for the year ended 30 June 2026? Simply speaking, they seek to know the figure for purchases, right? Now, purchases, if you purchase, that means that you purchase something from your supplier. You do not purchase things from customers, right? So if it's purchased from suppliers, and we are speaking of credit suppliers here, it means that we would have trade payables in our books. So if you have the trade payables in the books, actually, you can just, let's maybe try to write down the figures which are always, line items that are always included in the trade payables, right? Yeah. So we can start here, right? Uh, we have trade payables. We have the balance brought down, balance BD. Since it's a liability, the balance BD should be on the credit side, right? Yeah. So the balance BD, do we have it or not? We have trade payables at 30 June 2026. This is the end of the year. But we have the trade payables here on 1st July 2025. So it's 60,000, right? So I can write my figure here, 60,000, 60, something like that, all right? But also we could have the closing balance. Now, since the trade payables is of a credit nature, the closing balance should be opposite. So it should be of a debit nature. So expect something like this, right? Expect the balance CD, balance carried down, to be on the debit side. And we have the trade payables at 30 June 2026, which is the year end, at 84, right? 84,000, this one. Yeah, here. Then after this, we have to proceed now. Now you can just ask yourself in the process of trade payables, right? When dealing with trade payables, it means that I've purchased something from someone. You go to the supplier, you purchase something. If you purchase something, then you owe more, you owe the supplier more. So purchases should also be on the credit side, because if you purchase, it means that you owe something more, and then you increase the liability, and the liability is of a credit nature. So I expect my purchases figure to be on the credit side, although I do not know its amount. All right. After purchasing something, actually, you can be paid, right? You can go, a supplier can be paid. Your purchase, then you will go and pay the supplier. If you pay a supplier, you reduce the trade payables figure. And since trade payables is of a credit nature, is a liability, by reducing the liability, it means that we go on the credit side and write that figure, right? So I would come to the debit side here, debit side, and write cash paid. I have cash paid to suppliers here at 302,800, right? So I would say here cash, cash paid to suppliers, right? To suppliers. What was the figure? What was the amount? Just say cash paid. It was 302,800, right? Something like this. So that's all. Then after having something like this, I can say that, oh, I paid suppliers, but there are a lot of things. When you go and pay a supplier, maybe when buying, the supplier can tell you that, oh, I'm giving a discount. So if you are giving a discount by the supplier, we call it discount received. You have discount received and discount allowed. So discount allowed is for trade receivables. You allow it to your customers. But discount received is what you receive from your suppliers. So if you are given a discount, that reduces the amount you owe your supplier. So it should also stay on the debit side because it is intended to reduce the liability, which is of a credit nature, right? So I would come here and say that discount received, discount received, which is how much? 2,960, something like this, right? Okay. So if we take a look at these figures here, trade receivables is not related to our question. Trade payables also not related. Trade payables, we have already used it. Cash received from customers, this is for trade receivables, for credit customers. But here, we are speaking of purchases, so only supply is related. Cash paid to suppliers, we have written it already. Discount received, we have recorded it already. Okay, we have contra, leave it first. Trade receivables not related. Trade payables, it is related, right? So we have contra between payables and receivables ledger. Payables, right? Contra now. Contra between payables and receivables ledger. You know, by the word contra, contra is just the difference between the two figures. Let's say I've bought something for $10,000 from someone, but also someone has sold goods to me on credit for $6,000. The difference there is 4,000. Actually, I do not really mean that it should be the difference. No, you just go to one amount and then settle. Let's say I owe you $6,000 and you owe me $10,000. Then I could just say, oh, since I owe you six and you owe me 10, you can just take that amount and then give me, right? Okay, so simply speaking, when you have the contra simply reduces both trade payables and trade receivables. Just something like that, and everything is over. You have the contra. If you are dealing with trade receivables, reduce it. So trade receivables are of a debit nature, so it should go on credit side. But for trade payables are of a credit nature, so it should go to the debit side. So whenever you have the contra, and it related to trade payables, I should go on the debit side. And at what amount? It was 2,000, right? 2,000. This is the amount of contra, right? Something like that. So after having this, everything else is done. So we can just try to find our balancing figure here, right? Something like that. Actually, there are a lot of things, there are things like refund. Let's say you had a refund, something like that. Things like refund could go on the credit side here, but actually right now we are just dealing this exact question. So no much to speak of here. Okay, so if we just take a look here, you would find out that the debit side would be much larger than the credit side because on the credit